The call that changed everything. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across Michael Chen's modest kitchen as he stirred a pot of spaghetti sauce. His daughter Emma sat at the table, her math homework spread before her, pencil tapping rhythmically against the wood. It was their usual Tuesday routine, quiet and predictable, just the way Michael liked it since his wife passed 3 years ago. The phone rang, breaking the comfortable silence. Michael wiped his hands on a dish towel and glanced at the screen. Unknown number. He almost let it go to voicemail, but something made him answer. Hello? Hi, is this Michael Chen? The voice was warm, slightly hesitant. Yes, this is Michael. My name is Sarah Bennett. I know this might sound strange, but I need to talk to you about something important. It's about your daughter. Michael's stomach tightened. He glanced at Emma, who was now watching him with curious eyes. What about my daughter? Who are you? I'm sorry, I should explain. I'm not calling with bad news, I promise. Could we meet? Maybe tomorrow? I live nearby, actually. I think it would be better to discuss this in person. Michael felt his guard rising. In 3 years of single parenting, he had learned to be cautious, especially when it came to Emma. I don't understand. How do you know about my daughter? And how did you get my number? There was a pause on the other end. I realize this is unusual. Your daughter has been doing something wonderful, and I wanted to thank you both properly. Please just give me 20 minutes of your time. I live in the house next door to you, actually. The one with the iron gates, Michael blinked. The mansion. Everyone in the neighborhood knew about it, though few had ever seen inside. It sat on 3 acres, surrounded by tall hedges and ornate fencing. He had lived in his small house for 5 years and had never met the owner. Tomorrow at 4, Sarah asked softly. I'll have the gate open for you. Against his better judgment, Michael agreed. That night, after Emma was asleep, Michael stood at his bedroom window looking toward the mansion. Warm lights glowed in several windows, but the hedges revealed nothing more. What could Emma possibly have done that involved the mysterious neighbor? The next day crawled by with agonizing slowness. Michael's mind spun with possibilities, none of them quite making sense. When 3:30 arrived, he called Emma from her room. Sweetheart, we need to go next door for a few minutes. Emma looked up from her book, her eyes widening. To the big house? Yes. Do you know why someone there might want to talk to us? Emma's cheeks flushed pink, and she looked down. Maybe. Emma, I didn't think anyone would notice, she said quietly. I was just trying to help. Before Michael could press further, it was time to go. They walked down their driveway and along the sidewalk to the mansion's entrance. True to her word, the gate stood open, and a stone path wound through an immaculate garden toward the house. The front door opened before they could knock. A woman stood there, perhaps in her early 30s, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. She wore a simple blue dress, and despite the grandeur of her home, there was nothing intimidating about her presence. Michael. Emma? She knelt to Emma's level. Thank you both for coming. Please come in. The interior of the mansion was breathtaking but felt lived in rather than showy. Soft rugs covered hardwood floors and photographs lined the walls. Sarah led them to a cozy sitting room where large windows overlooked a garden. Can I get you anything? Juice, Emma. Emma nodded shyly, and Sarah disappeared for a moment, returning with drinks. They settled into comfortable chairs, and Sarah took a breath. I should explain. About 3 weeks ago, I noticed something by my back gate. Someone had left flowers there, fresh ones, arranged carefully. The next week, there were more flowers, and a little note that said, "For happy days." The week after that, more flowers, and a note that said, "You are not alone." Michael looked at Emma, whose face had turned bright red. Sarah continued, her voice thick with emotion. I lost my husband 8 months ago. Since then, I've barely left this house. I inherited it from him, and it felt so empty, so quiet. Those flowers, those little notes, they were the first thing that made me smile in a long time. Yesterday, I finally saw who was leaving them. She reached over and gently took Emma's hand. I watched from my window as this brave, kind girl carefully placed a bouquet by the gate. I called the school to get your information. I hope that's okay. Michael felt his eyes stinging. He looked at his daughter, this amazing little person he was raising, and felt his heart might burst. "Emma," he said softly, "where did you get the flowers?" "From our garden," Emma whispered. "I remembered what you said, about how when Mom died, Mrs. Patterson brought us flowers every week and it helped. I saw the sad lady in the big house once, walking in her garden. She looked how we looked before Mrs. Patterson helped us. I thought maybe flowers would help her too." Sarah wiped her eyes. "They did help me, more than you could know. But that's not the only reason I called you here." She stood and walked to a side table, retrieving an envelope. "I'm starting a foundation in my husband's name. He always wanted to help children in the community. I'd like Emma to be the first recipient of our scholarship fund for her college education." Michael started to protest, but Sarah held up her hand. "Please, let me do this. Your daughter reminded me that even in grief, we can still see others, still care, still make the world gentler. That's a lesson worth more than any scholarship, but I want to honor it anyway." Michael looked at Emma, then at Sarah, and felt something shift in his chest. For 3 years, he'd been so focused on protecting his daughter from the world that he had forgotten to show her how to reach out to it. "Thank you," he managed. "But only if you'll let us visit sometimes. I think Emma could use a friend who understands." "And honestly, so could I." Sarah's smile was radiant. "I was hoping you'd say that. I've been rattling around in this big house alone for too long. It would be nice to hear laughter again." As they walked home that evening, Emma's small hand in his, Michael looked back at the mansion. It seemed less imposing now, more like a home waiting to be filled with life again. Sometimes, he thought, the walls we build around ourselves come down in the most unexpected ways, opened by the smallest acts of kindness from the purest hearts. "Dad," Emma said, "can we bring her some of your spaghetti tomorrow?" Michael squeezed her hand. "I think that's a perfect idea, sweetheart." In the distance, he saw Sarah standing at her window, waving. He waved back, and for the first time in a long time, the future felt a little less lonely, a little more full of possibility. Sometimes, all it takes is one call from a stranger to remind us that we're never truly alone.